The figure began to laugh. Not Sophie's laugh, a mimicry of it. Cruel. Distorted. Almost got you again, it said. Then it vanished, sucked into the water with a hiss. Ethan sat on the shore in shock. Clara sat beside him, silent for a long while. Finally she said, "Maybe it isn't just grief it feeds on. Maybe it's hope too." Ethan stared at the calm lake. Then whispered, "What if she is still down there, and this was just another mask?" Clara said nothing. Because they both knew, if the lake could pretend once, it could pretend forever. Ethan stopped sleeping. Each night, he returned to the lake. And each night, it waited for him. Silent. Still. Watching. He stopped calling Sophie's name after the third night. The figure always came. Sometimes it looked like her. Sometimes like his childhood dog. Once, it looked like his mother, and that broke him more than anything else. Every time, it ended the same way, with a laugh, a wink, and a whisper, you almost believed. Clara grew worried. "You need rest," she told him. "You haven't eaten properly in days." "I saw her, Clara," he snapped. "The real Sophie. Just once. It wasn't pretending. It was her. She was crying. Reaching out." Clara stared at him with pity. "You're seeing what it wants you to see. You're losing yourself." He didn't respond. Because deep down, he feared she was right. He began forgetting things. Where he parked the car. What day it was. Whether he had spoken to Clara that morning, or only dreamed it. His dreams were worse than ever. In them, he was underwater. The lake above him was frozen over. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't scream. But Sophie was there, floating beside him. She'd whisper, "It's better here. Come see." And then, he'd wake up, soaked in sweat, fingernails muddy, and sometimes, with damp footprints on the floor leading to the lake. One morning, Clara found him standing knee-deep in the water. Unmoving. Staring. His eyes were unfocused. His lips were moving but no sound came. She dragged him out and wrapped him in blankets. He didn't fight her. "You're slipping, Ethan," she said softly. "Maybe that's the only way to reach her," he muttered. "Or maybe it's the only way to lose yourself." She hesitated, then pulled out something from her satchel, a small pouch made of deerskin. "My grandmother's protection charm," she said. "I should have given it to you sooner." Inside it were bones. Charred feathers. And something pulsing faintly blue. Ethan barely reacted. His mind was somewhere else. Back at the lake. That night, Ethan sat by the water again, but this time with a plan. He wouldn't call to her. He wouldn't speak at all. He simply held a mirror. An old, hand-held mirror he found in Sophie's things. Ornate, silver-framed. Slightly cracked. The lake had a thing for reflections. He held it up, letting the moonlight cast over its surface. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, the mirror fogged. A handprint formed on the glass from the inside. And a voice whispered, from somewhere beneath the surface, "You see now, don't you? She's part of me. Always was." Ethan stood. "Show me. Show me what you've done." The lake rippled. And suddenly, he was no longer standing on land. He was beneath it. It felt like drowning. But also, like dreaming. Images swirled around him. A young Sophie crying in her cabin. Sophie painting the creature over and over, compelled, obsessed. Sophie standing in the water, eyes glazed, whispering, "Take my pain." And then Sophie vanishing beneath the surface. No splash. No struggle. Just silence. Ethan gasped and stumbled back. He was back on shore. Soaked. Shaking. Knees in the mud, he dropped the mirror. It shattered. In the shards, he didn't see himself. He saw Sophie. She looked angry. That night, Ethan wrote in his notebook for the first time since she vanished, "I don't know if she's alive or if the lake is using her to get to me. But either way I'm starting to forget who I am. And I think I'm okay with that. Because if I lose everything else, maybe I'll finally reach her." The man who returned. The church in Asheville was small, almost forgotten, like a prop left behind on an abandoned film set. Faded wood, crooked steeple, and a dusty bell that hadn't rung in years. Clara brought Ethan there on the advice of an old man named Father Marin, a retired priest who'd served in Asheville for decades. He wasn't listed anywhere, not in the town directory, not even in church records, but Clara had once seen him at a funeral, years ago, whispering prayers no one else seemed to understand. When he opened the door, he looked at Ethan with eyes that had seen too much. "You've been touched by the lake," Marin said before anyone could speak. Ethan tensed. "Then you know what's happening to me?" "I do," the old priest nodded. "And I know how it ends for most." He led them into a candlelit chamber behind the altar, where dust danced in the rays of light. From a hidden drawer beneath a rotting floorboard, he pulled out an ancient, leather-bound ledger. "This," Marin whispered, "is the only written account of a man who entered the lake and came back." The journal belonged to Jonas Kettner, a fisherman from 1901 who lost his wife and daughter to Mistwood Lake during a sudden, inexplicable storm. Their bodies were never recovered, only their clothes, neatly folded on the dock, as if they'd vanished into air. Jonas, consumed by grief, claimed he heard his daughter singing beneath the water every night. He wrote, "The water speaks. It sings her lullaby now. I hear her laughter in the mist. I must go to her. I must bring them back." The final entries were scrawled in a trembling hand, "I saw her. My little girl. She reached out from beneath the ice. She smiled. But it wasn't joy, it was hunger. I went under. I followed the song. Everything felt soft. Warm. But I wasn't alone. I came back. But something followed. It wears my wife's face. She walks the woods now, waiting for me to fall asleep again." Father Marin closed the journal. He survived. But not unchanged. The lake claimed part of him. "Where's Jonas now?" Ethan asked. Marin's voice was hollow. "Died 6 months later. Slit his wrists in the chapel. Said he couldn't tell which memories were his anymore." Outside, Clara whispered, "You see now, going in doesn't bring them back. It breaks you." But Ethan's stare was fixed on the horizon on the lake. "She's not a memory," he muttered. "I know Sophie. I felt her. Ethan. If she's alive, I have to try." That night, Ethan returned to the lake one last time. He brought nothing but Sophie's journal and the charm Clara gave him. He stood at the edge as the wind died and the moon rose. The water shimmered. No ripples. No echoes. Just stillness. He whispered, "Take me. Show me the truth." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the ground beneath him trembled. The lake split open like a wound, black water rising to swallow the shore. Ethan didn't he run? He walked straight in. The water was warm at first. Then cold, then nothing. He floated in darkness. Then light. He stood on a strange shoreline. But it wasn't Asheville. It was, beneath it, a mirror world. Mist hung in the air like breathing fog. Trees stood upside down. The sky was water. The stars gone. And there, standing beneath a broken oak, was Sophie. She looked normal. Clean. Eyes full of tears. Ethan, she gasped. You came for me. He ran to her, wrapped his arms around her. She felt real. She felt warm. I've been trapped, she sobbed. I've been trying to call you every night. I saw your messages, he said. I knew you were still here. But something tugged at him. A cold pressure at the back of his skull. He looked at Sophie again. Something in her eyes shifted. Just for a second. A flicker. Not pain. Not relief. Triumph. And then she smiled, wide, too wide, and whispered, finally. I'm not alone anymore. The doorway. Clara couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. She knew the moment the wind died, the air turned still, and the fog began creeping toward town. She rushed to the lake. The shoreline looked empty, but the water was boiling. Rippling outward from the center in unnatural, silent waves. The sky above it twisted in slow, spiraling clouds. She called Ethan's name. No answer. She saw his footprints in the mud, leading into the lake. None coming back. Clara raced to Martha Key's house. The old woman opened the door already dressed, as if she too had been waiting. He went in, Clara gasped. Ethan! Into the lake. Martha's face darkened. Then he's either dead, or worse. There has to be a way to bring him back. One last way. Martha hesitated. There is. But it's not a rescue. It's an exchange. Clara stared. A soul for a soul. No, a willing soul for a bound one. You'd have to go in, wanting to stay. Only then might the lake release him. But you wouldn't come out. Clara looked down. Thought of Ethan. Thought of Sophie. And then said quietly, there's another way. The lake wasn't just water. It was a door. A wound in the world. If it could be opened, then maybe it could be sealed. She returned to the church and broke into the basement. There, beneath the altar, was an old wooden box Father Marin had once mentioned in a whisper, a sealed relic left behind by the first settlers. Holy items once used in exorcisms. Inside, oil, ashes, a blade carved from black stone, and a circle of white bark inscribed with ancient symbols. She took them all. Then returned to the lake. In the mirror world below, Ethan stood paralyzed as Sophie circled him, whispering sweet things with a tongue no longer human. Her voice echoed in reverse. The trees bled water. The ground pulsed like flesh. You came for me, she purred. Now stay. Ethan tried to pull away, but the mist tightened around his limbs like ropes. His thoughts weren't his own anymore. They blurred, twisted. He saw faces in the trees. His own. Clara's, Martha's, Sophie's, dozens of her, all smiling. Then he heard another voice. One he thought he'd never hear again. Clara. Ethan. You have to fight it. Clara stood at the edge of the lake, candles circling her, the black blade in one hand, the bark in the other. She chanted, not in Latin, not in English, but in a language from the old journal Jonas wrote, words passed down from before Asheville had a name. The lake screamed. Not the water. The thing inside it. Dark shapes surfaced, not bodies, but memories. Ghosts. Reflections. All those it had taken. They surrounded Clara, begging. Pleading. Some looked like children. Some like Sophie. One like Ethan. But Clara kept chanting. She stepped forward, placed the bark on the ground, and drew the blade across her palm. Blood mixed with ash. The symbols ignited. Below, the world shattered. Ethan fell as the roots of the trees collapsed. The sky cracked open, Sophie's echo screamed and split apart, revealing a mass of writhing black tendrils, flickering with stolen faces. He saw his own reflected there. And Sophie's trapped. He screamed. And then, light. Clara plunged the blade into the lake. The water turned black, then red, then pure white. There was silence. A heartbeat. Then, the lake exploded. But inward. Collapsing into itself. Clara was thrown back as wind howled from the inside of the water, sucking everything in: fog, trees, ghosts, screams. And then, nothing. Still. When she opened her eyes, Ethan was lying on the ground. Alive. His hands trembling. His face wet not with water, but tears. He looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time in days. Sophie, he whispered. Clara shook her head. He nodded slowly. She's gone, isn't she? Clara's voice cracked. Yes. But not suffering any more, she said. Whatever it was, it's gone too. The last echo. Weeks passed. Asheville moved on, as it always did. The lake, now little more than a dried-out basin of mud and cracked stone, lay silent beneath the summer sun. Birds returned. Trees leaned closer to the shore again. The fog no longer crept through town like fingers searching in the dark. And Ethan tried to heal. He stayed in town longer than he'd planned. Helped Clara at the library. Repaired the cottage's broken windows. Even planted a small garden where the dock used to be. People still whispered when they passed him. That's the man who lost someone in the lake. That's the one who went in and came back wrong. He didn't blame them. Because sometimes, when he looked in the mirror too long, he wasn't sure if he'd come back whole either. Every so often, Ethan returned to the empty lake bed. Not to mourn. To remember. Sophie's journal now sat in a sealed box on his shelf, unopened. He couldn't read it anymore. One evening, while watching the sunset alone by the dry lake, Clara joined him. They sat in silence for a long time. It feels peaceful, she finally said. Ethan nodded. Almost too peaceful. Then he stood. I think I'm ready to leave, Clara. Her eyes shimmered. You sure? He nodded slowly. She's gone. But not forgotten. Clara hugged him. I'll keep the town safe, she whispered. You saved more than you know. But just as Ethan prepared to drive away the next morning, he heard a knock at his motel door. A young couple stood outside, pale and frantic. Are you Ethan Cole? Yeah. We were told you know this place. What's wrong? The woman trembled. Our daughter, she vanished last night. Ethan's chest tightened. Where? They pointed toward the forest, near the lake. That evening, Ethan stood once more at the edge of the lake bed. Or what was left of it. The cracks in the ground had begun to fill with water again. Rain, perhaps. Or something else. In the puddles, he saw ripples. And for a moment, just one moment, he thought he saw Sophie's reflection. Smiling. Peaceful. But behind her, a second shape. Still. Watching. Just like before. Ethan turned away. But before he left, he whispered, "Not this time." Then he lit a match. And dropped it into the last, shallow pool. The ripples sizzled. And finally, faded. The end. Or perhaps, the beginning again.